Wanted to thank
Mr. Wilson, if
all
you would
for
step
being
forward and
here.
raise your right hand, please, sir.
Come
Come
right
up
up
a
in
little
here.
farther. It's all right. Right there's good. You swear from the testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Go ahead and have a seat in the witness stand. Please watch your step as you step into the stand.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. Have you ever testified before?
No.
We couldn't tell. I'm kidding. Would you please introduce yourself to the jury and then spell your name for the record?
Yes. My name is Spencer Wilson, Spencer. Wilson, Wilson. I am a reporter with CBS 4.
All right. That's what I was going to ask you next. I want to jump back even prior to now. What kind of training education do you have that allows you to be a news reporter?
I have a degree from the University of Missouri in broadcast journalism and going on 10 plus years of experience as a television reporter.
I've never had the opportunity to do this before as a Jayhawk. I have to say rock chalk to a Missouri grad.
I will just say MIZ and leave it at
Uh,
that.
back in January of 2020, who were you working for then?
KKTV 11 News.
What was your job assignment in that time period?
I was a multimedia journalist, which just means that I'm a cameraman as well as a reporter at the same time. So one-man band.
Was it common for you to cover stories in the Pikes Peak region, Colorado Springs, El Paso County?
Very common, yes.
As a part of your job, would you sometimes interview people out in the community?
Yes.
How many interviews do you think you had done at that time of your career?
Thousands.
On-camera interviews?
Yes.
Thousands. Did you start to, at some point, cover the Gannon Stauch case?
I did.
How did your coverage start in that case?
It was kind of bouncing around between different reporters. Eventually, one day I was put on the story, and I can't remember if it was the very first day or if it was the second day I was doing the story, but I was out there and made contact with Leticia Stauch.
Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit. Was there anything odd about you making contact or the way the contact unfolded for you?
Yes, I can remember it very clearly. I was on the sidewalk. We were just covering a search that day in the neighborhood. And there was a big moving truck and also a car pulling out of the neighborhood. And somebody rolled down their window and started to chastise me for coverage, being out there and reporting on stuff, and questioned the way that I was telling the story. That person was Leticia Stauch. And I realized that. And I said, well, if you got such a problem with this, why don't we go talk about it?
So when this, you described two vehicles. What you said was a moving truck. Was this like a van, like a utility van?
Yeah.
And then the other vehicle, what kind of vehicle was that?
No better description than just a standard car.
Okay.
Not like a truck, not a SUV, little car.
Which vehicle was the defendant in when the window rolled down and there was words said towards you?
The car in the front, the moving car was behind them. She was not in that car.
So she was in the actual vehicle,
That is correct.
passenger vehicle.
Hmm.
What seat was she in?
Oh gosh, I couldn't tell you.
Okay, that's fine.
I believe driver's seat, but I don't feel super clear on that.
Was it immediately apparent to you that the person that was saying these words to you was Leticia Stauch?
No, it took about 5 seconds. And since I had been keeping tabs on the case and the social media along with it, a lot of people were talking about her at the time. And then when it did click, I had this moment of, oh gosh, this is the people everyone's trying to talk to.
What was her demeanor like when she did that?
Angry, I guess is the best way to put it. She was not excited that I was there. She was not excited to see other members of the media there. There was a lot of people down there covering the story. And just the words she said to me were basically, you're doing this wrong.
Okay. And so then that's when you make this arrangement to go talk somewhere else. Did you in fact do that?
That's correct. I offered to do an interview. She mulled it over for a quick second. There was some conversation in the car. Eventually she said, okay, we'll give this a shot. And I said, being the reporter I was for that station, I don't want everybody else to have this at the same time. So let's go somewhere else. And she agreed that it would be a spectacle if we were to do it right there. So we drove to a construction lot maybe half a mile away.
Okay. And just for contextual reference, was this on January 31st, 2020?
Correct.
So roughly, I guess, 4 days after Gannon was first reported missing to the police?
That's correct.
So tell us, how do you go about setting up doing an on-camera interview in a general sense? And then how did you do it in this case?
Generally, I will talk to the person beforehand, kind of give them an explanation of what's about to happen. This is all while I'm handing them a remote microphone that will then clip onto some part of their body somewhere. And then I begin by asking them to say and spell their full name and explain who they are to the story. That's fairly standard practice. I think almost every reporter does that ever. The difference on this story was a part of the circumstances where Leticia was willing to talk to me was in the event that she did not have to show her face. And so I try to get creative because I desperately wanted to have this interview, but at the same time, I could not show her face, which is difficult for TV because we have to show things. I came up with the idea if she looked away from the camera and if I looked towards it, you could still see the conversation happening. That being said, you would not see her face.
Let's talk a little bit about this microphone that you just described that would click on somebody's clothing. Does it have a wire that goes to some sort of little control box that is somehow then wirelessly connected to your camera?
That's correct.
Is it typical that that control box to that microphone would stay with the person while that microphone is attached to them?
That's correct.
If a person walked away from the camera to a different area or, proximity wise, would the camera still pick up on anything that that microphone is picking up on?
That's correct.
Did that happen in this case?
Yes.
Was it odd to you as a reporter that had done thousands of interviews that Leticia was asking you to do this interview but not have her face facing the camera?
Not entirely so. It did make it an unusual situation, but there are some instances where people ask to not have their face shown. We'll sometimes shoot somebody's hands as video when we're talking to them. And considering the nature of this interview, where she was hesitant to do it in the first place, I was more willing to accept the terms of that agreement.
Did the fact that you were able to do this interview, was that a good get for you as this news cycle was developing?
My newsroom was ecstatic, yes.
Did you play along with what the defendant was telling you during this interview to keep her talking?
As a part of that training you mentioned at the University of Missouri, it is told to us that in order to have a conversation with someone, you cannot agree with what they're saying, but you do need to keep them continuing what they're saying. That is why, as you're nodding right now, I would nod along with whatever was being said. That doesn't necessarily mean I was agreeing to anything. It was meaning that I needed her to keep saying things.
Okay. And you did that in this particular case as well?
That's correct.
All right. Was there a portion of this interview where she asked you actually to redo a portion of it?
That's correct.
Tell the jury about that circumstance.
Towards the end of our interview, after we had a couple different conversations, I was also, mind you, the cameraman in this instance too. So I'd have to stop and walk behind the camera, hit stop, hit start if we needed to redo things. I think we cut it maybe 2 or 3 times, took breaks, came back on. At the very end, this was the thing that was the most interesting to me and why I remember it so much is that I asked, is there anything that you would want to say to Gannon? In this interview, she had told me that she believed he was coming home. She said yes, gave her statement, and I said, okay, we got it. And then she said, what if we did that one more time? And I said, sure, whatever you want. So I went back, turned the camera back on, but this time she was crying when she was not crying the first time, and her demeanor completely changed. It went basically from, I can't wait till you're home, everyone's going to see that I'm not lying, they owe me an apology, to, I will not mimic someone crying, but she was very upset in the second part, which took a second to happen.
Based on the things that you were hearing coming from the defendant, Letecia Stauch in this case, during that interview, did it seem that she was more focused on how she was being perceived publicly as opposed to helping find Gannon?
Absolutely. I talked to neighbors who were more concerned for Gannon.
Okay. And Your Honor, may I approach with People's Exhibit 334?
You may.
I don't know who's doing this. Mr. Wilson, I'm holding a disc, People's Exhibit 334. Do you recognize this disc?
I do.
Why do you recommend it?
I just watched it in the other room.
So did you initial or put your signature on it and today's date?
That's correct.
The contents of this disc, is it basically a file of that interview?
That's correct.
Is it fair and accurate representation of your interview?
Yes.
Move for admission of exhibit 334.
Okay. Exhibit 334 will be admitted. Go ahead.
And permission to publish, Your Honor.
You may.
You are,
I am Leticia Stauch, which is Gannon's stepmother.
you've been a part of the investigation since the very first time. You were the last person to see him. Is that right?
Correct.
What did you see when you last saw him?
Well, I'm not allowed to talk about anything with the case. I would more so be willing to talk about how the community needs to have faith and continue to work together and not make these false accusations, like the things that have been said that I've disappeared from the community. I haven't been there to help, but there's lots of reasons behind that.
Reasons like death threats, right?
Right. Death threats are one of them. My family's getting lots of death threats. We counted over 20 some death threats already. Two, my husband's ex-wife is living in our home. And of course, I'm not coming home to do these things and to help with the family when I was kind of like told I couldn't. And then many other things that happened with the El Paso County Police Department, and in doing the investigation, I was told I wasn't complying. And could I elaborate on that?
Please do.
Yes. So I asked for an attorney during the interview, and I was denied that by them. I was held because they were blocking the door, and I was told I couldn't leave, and that if I would have touched them, they would have probably, said I still wasn't complying or said I was, trying to run away or something. But during the interview, I asked several times, could I stop the interview? Could I get an attorney? Could I stop the interview? Could I get an attorney? I was denied. I was told I couldn't get nothing to drink. I couldn't go to the bathroom. I mean, it was continuously that my constitutional rights were violated.
And that's why you say that they said then you weren't cooperating with the investigation.
That's why they said I wasn't cooperating at that time. Correct.
And why did you ask for an attorney at the time?
Well, I asked for an attorney at the time because there was one individual, there was two really good detectives. And so I'm not, going to talk bad about detectives, but the tactics they started to get when I would answer questions, they try to, they're detectives. They're supposed to twist. The one main goal is to find Gannon. But during that time, some of those things made me feel uncomfortable the way they were saying things. So I immediately stopped and felt like an attorney would help me with some of the vocabulary and things like that I needed help with and understanding some of the things that they were asking.
I'm going to shift gears to what has become a huge online presence of people obviously trying to do the right thing, help find Gannon. But at the same time, sometimes it just feels like rumor mongering. Have you seen any of those comments yourself?
We have. And see, that's one of the main things we haven't been around in the public eye because I didn't want to expose my family to it if all these things were going on. There was comments about Gannon getting pushed off the hike, and there was comments about this, and that's just not true. I took care of Gannon for the last 2 years in our home because his mother didn't want to do it. And I would never, never, ever hurt this child. And I know there's some questions out there about, okay, so tell me what happens. That's up to the investigations when they end up letting you guys know. But I've cooperated with them, even to the point that we were held with a gun. And my daughter, a 17-year-old who serves our country in the United States Air Force, who has never committed a crime or done anything wrong in her life, was put in handcuffs over the keys that was in her purse so they could take her car.
And they weren't in there.
They weren't even in her car. I mean, in her purse.
And
They were in my pocket.
You originally didn't even know it was a law enforcement officer?
I didn't know it was a law enforcement officer because when he came out, I guess he was putting his jacket on, and it wasn't necessarily his fault. He was adjusting and happened to catch me. But I saw the gun and I panicked originally and kind of thought, oh gosh, I got to, like, who's this guy? And then once I realized it was the sheriff's office, I was totally okay, but they still had a gun and told me they were going to shoot me. But I was really concerned about my daughter, asking why she was being detained in handcuffs and things like that, when that shouldn't even happen for a child. That shouldn't happen for someone who was standing inside of a store shopping because we couldn't have any clothes because all of our clothes were here. If we came here and got clothes, we would be harassed. So she went to purchase some underwear and things like that and was putting the handcuffs in the store, and then brought out with men with guns. And that's just not okay. They could have approached me and said, hi, I'm with El Paso County. Can I please get this? Instead of the way that it happened.
I'm just going to check your shot. Doing great. I want to make sure that we're Still good on recording, still can hear you okay. Okay, yeah, sounds like we're good. Every once in a while my mic will get out and I want to make sure that's not going to happen here. Okay. I should try and clarify here, not necessarily crime rates, but the way that people are reacting online to rumors about you with the search.
Oh yes. Wow. The rumors have gotten so bad. I pretty much have been told at least 10 different ways that these people have these conspiracy theories. I guess they watch a lot of law shows and maybe they have all these theories on how Gannon is dead. And that's what they're saying. So I'm like, why are you saying Gannon is dead? He is not dead. We are going to find Gannon. And that's the main goal that we all have. My family has. Just because you haven't seen us, we have that same goal. We've been out searching. My aunt has been out searching. My family has been out searching. We all have been doing that together so that we could protect each other.
How does it feel when not only you have a lost child who you are in care of, but then people blaming you for that child and family?
You know, I'm just ready for Gannon to come home. Most importantly, for him to see his family. But second, I am going to be so ecstatic when I'm able to say to people that I hope they have a really sincere apology for all these theories that have came out online, for all the things they said that I have done or people have done. And I just want everyone to know that we're going to find Gannon. And I love him so much. I've helped taking care of him for so long.
Can you talk to me a little bit about him? I don't know him.
Gannon is so kind and he loves to play video games. That's one of his favorite things. He loves Sonic and Mario. And, he's always helpful. And he was always so helpful with the dogs around the house. And we have 2 little cute dogs. And he was always like a person I could say, Gannon, can you go do this? And he would do it right away. Sometimes with kids, we have to remind them and things like that. And that's okay. But he was so sweet and able to help anyone. He could notice when you're sick and say, are you okay? And such a kind heart.
I know you just said that you can't say anything about the investigation, so you can just say so again if you can't answer this. But is there anything we can hear about the hike? Was there a hike? That just seems like rumors right now.
You know what? Could we bring my daughter up here? Because she can go and say that, she came home from work after the hike and she can verify that Gannon was at our home.
Okay, yeah, that's fine with me. If she doesn't want to, that's okay, but you're allowed to say after. Not okay so far?
Yes. I need Harley. Because they want you to verify was Gannon at home after the hike. Because you didn't go to the hike, but you came home from work. You want me to just say yes? No, just answer the question. Yes, you came home from work and you can verify Gannon was at home. Yeah. I told her she didn't have to be too in depth because she is still, a child. But I want to make sure that someone knows that there's another person to verify that Gannon.
Sure.
Does she need to hold this?
No.
Yes, so I came home later that evening. I was at work and I can verify that he was there that night.
So there was a hike that you guys went on, but then you guys came home.
Yes.
Where'd you guys go hiking?
Garden of the Gods.
Oh, yes. Okay. I guess when
And then we ate Burger King afterwards. So,
there you go.
yeah.
And then it just was, I'm gonna go to play at a friend's house. And then it was just I'm off to go to play at a friend's house.
Unfortunately, I'm not able to comment on that anymore. And for that reason is because some things have been turned and twisted. And, that was one of those stories you were talking about where people say things. We had to hear things like who would let their child go out at dark and things like that. And that's just why I don't want to answer that. If I had to give, I'm not gonna say that part.
That's okay.
Never mind. I could take that out.
I understand that it gets tricky with
Yeah.
people stuff. Do you feel like I asked you what I need to? Do you feel like this is going to help kind of turn the tide of what feels like a witch hunt, in my opinion?
I hope am I on camera now?
You are
Okay.
still.
Okay. I think that a lot of people can see that I'm not missing and see that I am being cooperative. But to me, it's okay that they think those things because the way someone thinks about me, I don't have a problem with that. My main thing is I would never want someone to think that I would hurt Gannon or any of the children in our home because that's just not the case. I've spent my whole entire life working so hard in education. There was even things online that was talking about my education license and I shouldn't even be a teacher. And they just didn't know that. Like we moved on a military move and I didn't finish out my contract. So I gave up my license in that state. It had nothing to do with any criminal activity, you know, or any of those things. And it just got blown out of proportion on my professional status, you know, and
Do you feel like these are just internet detectives who think they know what they're doing?
it definitely is. And you know, here's the thing that kind of saddens me. It's like if you're going to talk about someone like that and have a witch hunt out for them, why would you even care like about doing those things? Because this is a child. You're telling me that you're just as mean, you're just as hateful to talk about someone else like that. That's how I feel. Like we just should not. We should all come together and wait until the end and see what happens because again, it's going to come home.
Any message for
Then when you get here, you'll be able to truly tell what happened. And then I really hope I get a sincere apology from everyone who has made all those things, especially from my husband. We just wanted to add a message to Gannon from my family is that we love you and miss you. And we hope that you come home soon. And Gannon, I can't wait till you can come home and let everyone know that you're okay. We love you.
Mr. Wilson, it's probably fairly obvious, but the person that you were interviewing there, is she here in the courtroom?
She is.
Will you please point her out and describe what she's wearing for the jury?
Pink shirt.
You're pointing over to the right-hand side of the courtroom?
That's correct.
Female at defense table?
That's correct.
All right, ask that the record reflect to identify the defendant.
The record will so reflect.
Mr. Wilson, did the defendant appear to be of sound mind to you while you were with her?
Yeah.
No, he can give his opinion regarding what he thought about her mental state at the time.
Yes.
Did she seem to be able to answer questions to you logically and give coherent answers?
Yes.
You mentioned that, to your memory, that she was driving the passenger vehicle.
Yes.
Did she seem to be following the rules of the road?
Yes.
Could she stop when she was supposed to stop?
Yes.
Was she driving on the right side of the road as opposed to the left?
That's correct.
During that interview, do you remember, is there a point in time where she's referring to Gannon in the present sense and then she changes it to the past tense?
Yes.
Do you remember when that was?
We just watched it. but
Okay.
no, sorry.
If we can queue up 5 minutes and 50 seconds, please. We're going to just replay that portion, Judge, because it happens fairly quickly.
He decided that we're in the like we don't want to use it. It's all who like he was like about approach me, approach hi, I'm with help out of the way.
5:50.
Even my ball shut down. That's when we take.
Oh, for that child and shame.
You know, I'm just ready for Gannon to come home. Most importantly, for him to see his family. Gannon to come home. Most importantly, for him to see his family. But second, I am.
Just so that we're tracking. So it's paused right now at 5 minutes and 33 seconds. And then we'll get to that 5 minutes and 50 seconds section. Go ahead and play it, please.
Going to be so ecstatic when I'm able to say to people that I hope they have a really sincere apology for all these theories that have came out online, for all the things they said that I have done or people have done. And I just want everyone to know that we're going to find Gannon. And I love him so much. I've helped taking care of him for so long.
Can you talk to me a little bit about him? I don't know him.
Gannon is so kind and he loves to play video games. That's one of his favorite things. He loves Sonic and Mario. And, you know, he's always helpful and he's always so helpful with the dogs around the house. And we have 2 little cute dogs. And he was always like a person I could say, Gannon, can you go do?
Was that significant to you that it changed in mid-statement from present sense to past tense? I'm asking his impression of it.
Now I'm going to sustain the objection. I think the jury can draw their own conclusions about it. I'm not sure that his opinion about it adds any extra relevance.
Okay.
So the objection sustained.
Okay. What about when this interview ended? Did she get back into the driver's seat of that passenger vehicle and drive away?
Yes.
She again appeared to be driving and following the rules of the road.
That's correct.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Cross-examination.
One of the reasons
Oh, I'm sorry.
that she expressed she didn't want her face to be seen is she had concerns for her safety.
Correct.
No further questions.
Redirect. Do any of the jurors have any questions for Mr. Wilson? Okay, just write it down. And looks like just the one. And counsel approach, please.
Goodness, her attorneys are horrible. I really hope they don't mess this all up. A couple times it seemed like they were trying to throw Harley under the bus, like putting doubt that, you know, maybe Harley could have been the one to have done something. Or at least that's the way I took it anyway. They need to order her to sit up and act like a decent human being.
Mr. Wilson, did the defendant stop crying immediately following the interview? Did her demeanor change following the interview?
Yes.
Let me ask those separately so that it's clear which one is you're answering to. Did she stop crying immediately following the interview?
Quicker than a normal person would stop crying.
And did her demeanor change following the interview?
Yes.
All right, I will allow reasonable follow-up as to those questions only. Prosecution?
No.
Defense?
Was the camera shut off immediately after the interview? Was there film that was not shown that would have shown her demeanor afterwards?
The relevant pieces of information. The camera was still rolling post that interview. That being said, the microphone was removed from Leticia Stauch, and also I left the scene.
So there would have been no video to confirm what you're saying about when she stopped crying.
It would have been outside of the view of the camera. I'm not sure if she had the microphone on that at the time.
Okay, and that wasn't played for the jury.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You may step down.